Put on your favorite song, shake around the house. What are you talking about? I can't dance really well. Yes, you can. Move, to the beat, whatever that means to you. And then you'll start to get that flow. So oftentimes you will hear people be like, I can't be quiet in my mind. And I basically say, that's fine. Don't just keep at it. Let's change it up. Music, movement, dance around, be free and light in your body. Just kind of change it around. When I'm in a dance class, there's no way in hell I'm thinking about the steps that I'm doing, the movement that I have to do, the balance I have to do, the music, the keys, everything. I'm just in it. And so that's provided, I think, an avenue and this kind of like clear path from my body to my mind. So even when I'm still, I can still access it.
Welcome to the Global Affair podcast, brought to you by Love Out Loud, the world's largest love-based movement, actualizing a civilization of love by 2030. My name's Nicole Gibson, and join me and some of the world's brightest minds as we bring some of the most important and controversial conversations of our time into a space of unity. It's important to know that as your host, this isn't about my personal opinion or bias, but rather an opportunity to listen with love, honesty, curiosity, and reveal the true universal experience us humans have amongst the differences. So if you love the show, please let us know by giving us a rating and tell us how to make this conversation easier for other people to jump into as well. And with that, let's get it. Patricia Ladis, welcome to the Global Affair podcast. We're sitting here in Los Angeles, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know you over the past few days at this amazing event. These guys would have met Kim Serafini by now, so we're here doing the filming for Changemakers Prize. And straight away, I felt, okay, there's a synergy here. There's some shared perspectives on what's going down on our planet. And I'm really excited to share some of your incredibly refined knowledge and wisdom with our audience. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here. The feeling is completely mutual.
Good. That's good to know. It's good to discover that live on a podcast. It's always a risk.
Yeah, no.
And Patricia's over here in California from New York, where she runs an incredible practice. What's the name of your practice?
It's Wise Body Physical Therapy. Mm-hmm.
That makes total sense. So Wise Body Physical Therapy in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm. We're on 53rd Street and Madison Avenue.
There you go. Go take a visit. Yeah. I don't want people to be flooding you though. So just know that Patricia's really worked with the best, and I hope to get into maybe some of those experiences as we venture through the episode. But the Global Affair podcast is really all about taking some of the greatest challenges that we're facing as a planet and discussing, and that's not always an easy discussion to have, what are the real things we need to talk about, and what are the real ways that we can solve these problems, whether comfortable or not. So if you were to define, as best as you could, the global issue, the global affair that you're really trying to solve in every sort of touch point of your work, what would that be?
Well, we're surrounded by a lot of issues, and I think we're at a precipice right now where we can really, it is a turning point. I do feel that in my heart of hearts. My mission, and I think what I've been kind of put to the test to do, is to inspire others to move and be in their body. And I think what ends up happening is that it's going to take all of us to get whole, to really find that light within us and express it and be in touch with the love that flows from that light, the compassion for self and for others, and then kind of putting our best self forward. And I don't think you could quite get there without moving. I feel that we are leading such sedentary lives. We're doing things, eating things, thinking things that actually dim that light. So when we can move and almost dance and play, all of a sudden ideas start coming to us. All of a sudden we feel freedom in our body, freedom to be who we are. And each and every one of us has those gifts. So how are you going to tap into those gifts so that you can solve the world's problems, so that you can even see that there is a problem. Because so many of us just want to close the shades and be like, okay, it's crazy out there, I'm just going to stay in my little bubble. And that's not okay either. So I think that there's this piece that often we don't think about, is that if we don't move our body, if we don't feel fluid and free in our body, we cannot access our full mind, because our neurocenters, they just don't fire when we don't move. It's kind of like a nature. Something in nature within us is just saying, oh, this person's not really part of society. They're just basically staying in one place all the time. So I'm not going to waste my energy here.
Honestly,
our own neurons are like basically like, I'm going to sleep too. You know, like I'm cool with that. I mean, we're really wired to save energy, so it's like, okay, with the littlest thing, that's what's the choice is going to be. But I do think that if we can. Well, there's a lovely statistic about how if you made a pill that gave you all of the benefits of what movement and exercise does, it would throw all the other pills off of the market. And that's a huge statement. And Harvard scientists are like, yeah, we're trying to make it, you know, but it's like, well, why don't you just preach for everybody to move, you know? And so it's a wild scenario of modern conveniences, of the digital age, of everything being in your pocket. You do not have to go and walk to get your water. You have like 2 steps and there's a tap. You don't have to go and struggle to make your shelter. You don't have to struggle to work even. You could just go 2 steps from your bed, or in your bed for some people. You know, it's a terrible situation. It's a great convenience, and it provides opportunities. I'm not knocking it, but you cannot just think. And what we know is that sitting for 8 hours a day is the equivalent of smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day on your health. And what we also have recently found out in the last couple years is that you can't exercise 2 to 3 times a week and combat the 8 hours of sitting. So people are like, whatever, I move, I do my thing, I'm on my spin bike, I, go for my walk, I do whatever. You have to do something on a daily basis, and you also have to not sit for 8 hours a day. You have to move. So, no matter what you come into my office with, you're going to get a little taste of all of those things. Okay, let's stand. Okay, let's squat. Let's move. Let's go high knees. Let's just kind of get into this movement. And I have to say, during the pandemic, I was an essential business, so we were open. But so during COVID, we closed for about 2 to 3 weeks. That's it. And then we were back. I mean, we had patients that were just out of surgery and really needed care, and plenty of patients that were in really good health and were fine with the parameters and the safety precautions we were taking. And no one actually contracted COVID that was in the office or around us, which was fantastic. So we did a great job. However, I actually had to switch my whole practice to telehealth for 3 weeks. And my body never felt worse. Never felt worse. My mind
Zoom
never.
calls.
Yeah. My mind never felt worse. And I was also doing exercises with these people. So I was actually moving in my day, but I was more sedentary than I've ever been in my whole entire life. As a professional dancer, it's just like my nature. I hear a little beat, I start bopping even if I'm on my way to the bathroom. It's just keep that movement, keep that flow. And so that, I think, is, having experienced it firsthand, I was like, wow, how do people live like this?
And I think that there's so much importance for people to really hear this and receive it. And, the challenge with the message, the most important messages, I think, of all time, the importance of health and movement being one of them, they've been said so much that often the message gets lost in translation.
100%.
So I really like this idea of tying it into not just, I guess, the global crisis that we hear all the time in media, which is obesity, chronic health issues, but what if you were to start to reframe the understanding of why it's important to move and put that in relationship to what you were sharing at the beginning of the episode, which is it's your opportunity to really meet that innate intelligence within you. It's actually within that practice that your imagination opens up, that your ideas start to flow. I think that could be a thought revolution, and I hope this catalyzes a thought revolution where maybe that's enough just to get you taking those first steps if you fit into this category of someone that is currently like sort of pacified by the conveniences of the modern world. What is it going to take to really start to make that change?
Yeah. And knowing that it's just little changes here and there, right? Just like, don't be overwhelmed by it. Oh no, now I have to do all of these things. No, while you do the things that you do, why can't you do it in a different position? Why can't you just start to recognize that there are opportunities in your day where you can move, which will actually make you more productive? And, you know, I'm a very holistic physical therapist. I specialize in biomechanical analysis and getting to the root cause of pain and problems. But the first question I ask my patients are, what do you think is really going on? And they're like, well, I'm here for you to tell me. I'm like, no. Right? And I have to harness that wisdom that they have within, because they're in that body, to help me figure out that root cause. It really starts with you. So I think empowering others that they actually do have the power to do that, to find it, and to actually just kind of with little changes. But so much, we're so deep in the darkness, we're in the rut of things, we're in this kind of cycle in, day out, then more stresses, more pressure, new challenges that we might be faced with, whether it's on a personal level or, you know, professional level. It keeps us feeling that kind of heaviness, which then continues to dim our light. So I would love to see that people say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to change it up a little. Kind of like someone deciding that they were going to cut out the 4 cups of coffee that they're drinking and drop it down to 1 or 2, right? That you just decide one day, you know what? Maybe I could do this a little differently, and maybe it'll actually make me feel a little bit better. And that even just doing a small amount will make a huge difference. So not being overwhelmed by this task and this kind of call to action, but rather, you know, looking and surveying your day and being like, oh, well, you know what? Come to think of it. Like, I have one guy that does 2 exercises of mine while he waits for his coffee to get made. Literally, like, he holds onto the counter and he does it. And he's like, I do it every single day now because I link it to that ritual. Before, I would have been just scrolling through my emails as I wait for my coffee to drip down. And before, I used to, you know, have a timer so it'd be ready. But now I just kind of give myself that 2 minutes and I do my couple of exercises, and then I actually feel really taller, better, and I don't have the pain. So, you know, when you have that immediate gratification, like I did this and I have no pain. But what if you don't have pain? But you're just sluggish and maybe just stuck in that rut? You have to just give it that time that it'll take, which is sometimes a day, sometimes a couple of weeks, and sometimes 18 months.
Yeah. And I mean, you've worked with some pretty incredible clients. I mean, notably the Venus sisters and Tannis. You know, they're not small fry, and they're coming to you to really rehabilitate some serious stuff. So you've seen it at the optimum level. And, you know, what have you learned by working with people that are consistently, you know, they're on the other end of the spectrum, you know, they're not struggling to move. They're kind of working to their upper limit every single day. What's that taught you about the body, about the mind, the connection between the two, mindset, all of the above?
Well, when you have the pressures of, you know, needing to win, wanting to win, sponsorship, contracts, all these kinds of things, they're actually the thing that weighs you down. Right? Those are things that sometimes could provide that internal stress. So specifically in professional tennis, it's really, you have to be very sound in your mind. You see someone that's super talented just completely fade away and completely lose a match that they should have won. That their opponent on the other side of that
mental?
net, it's all mental. Because they just...
Venus and Serena Williams, by the way, the Williams sisters. Just to correct myself.
So Venus and Serena have an amazing kind of their own ways that they stay centered. But when I'm coming in, I'm like the detective trying to solve the problem, and they're at pristine shape, you know, working out with all of these people, fitness, you know, mindset, diet and exercise and cross training. And then of course, tennis technique and, you know, all these things, and getting better and getting more power and getting more agility and just kind of pushing their game to higher and higher heights. But sometimes something is off that gets missed by the team. And you need another set of eyes, a fresh pair of eyes to just say, hey, something's, you know, I'm seeing X, Y, and Z is not really showing up for you during that serve or during that. So it can get really finite to the fluidity that you need for that sport, or the power that you need for that sport, or the agility you need for it. So every sport is a little bit different. For tennis, I think my success was so great because of my dance background. You know, they call Federer the Baryshnikov of tennis because he is so effortlessly and fluidly just kind of gracing that court. It's just graceful is a top descriptor of his tennis game. And so that fluidity, sometimes somewhere in there is some sort of jagged edge or some sort of choppiness. And so when I'm looking at someone, I'm looking at where is there no flow in that part, you know, in their body. And, you know, I have a very interesting story. My first US Open that I came in to help, again, I'm like the triage person, right? Like this person has been all around the world, 2 years, pain, has not gotten any help. People keep treating it the same way and it's not getting better. What are your thoughts? So that's who I am in this realm. And so I go in 2002 and I'm just like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, excited to be there, and all because I was colleagues with the chief medical officer and I've helped some of his toughest cases. So he's like, Patricia, I really like your eyes on this guy. And I worked with him, and he had been in 2 years of just complete decline in his game, but he had a really amazing game. Could have probably been number one. I mean, amazing guy. And his serve was really off and he had the shoulder pain. And I realized that it was his foot. Every time I watched him and I saw this kind of angst in the shoulder, it was because his foot was in this weird place. And sometimes it would be okay.
And everyone else missed this.
Yeah, because I don't think anybody actually looked at him whole body. They were just finite looking at the damage that was already there in the shoulder that could have.
It's very Western world, isn't it?
100%. And then maybe they look a little at the neck. Maybe they'll look a little at like, how are you holding your racket, you know? But they're not looking at everything and where there is. So I was like the whisperer trying to figure it out. Like, and you know, I hate to say, but it's when you're working with these athletes, they're working with amazing people already, right? They're at the top of their game. They're working with amazing physicians and physical therapists and trainers and kinesiologists and sports scientists, all trying to give them all these assets. But sometimes when things aren't going well, because if they're going well, great, all cool. But if they're not, they sometimes need another set of eyes, because there's not a lot of people that I think have the gift to be able to really zoom out and kind of look at that sort of thing. And I saw him sadly. To like a couple of years later, I was the U.S. tennis team's physical therapist at Athens 2004 Olympics. And I was in the cafeteria, just had a break, you know, just kind of trying to get some food and rushing back. And I, Patricia, you know, across the, you know, this thick, heavy accent. And I said, hey, where have you been? What happened? Because he was completely off the tennis tour. And he basically said, you were the only one, and I should have listened to you. And I feel really sad that I didn't. I was like, this is a horrible story. But basically, he went, had the surgery because his shoulder was, I mean, I only treated him 3 times. And then, you know, he won a couple of more.
Did you advise against surgery?
Yeah. I basically told him, you have to fix your foot. Yeah. Like, even if you need your shoulder to be fixed, which I didn't think he did, you need to fix your foot. So he didn't really listen. He went back home, got surgery, felt great in his shoulder because he tightened up things that had been frayed and all kind of discombobulated, but he was literally wearing away his shoulder because his foot wasn't serving him. So then his second tournament back, he broke his ankle so badly that he couldn't come back. Wow. And now all he does is coach. So that's a terrible situation because this was a really wonderful talent that just missed out on his dreams and his love of tennis to have this singles career, which he was knee deep in. And it just went into, you know, just turned the corner and went in the wrong way. So my mission is really to try to prevent those things from happening. That happened really early in my career, and I was committed. Now, I did go to the chief medical officer. I was like, I don't think it's his shoulder. I think it's his foot. He's like, come on, Patricia. Like, I know you do all these crazy funky things and you help people, but like, really? And I was like, I know, but and then I ended up speaking about it at conferences, right? Because people wanted to know what the hell happened. And then I started working, luckily, with Mike Bryan, who ends up breaking every single longevity record known to man for tennis. And, you know, this is the famous Bryan brothers doubles champs that were number 1 for like ever. And they just retired, and everybody wanted to do surgery on him. And he just didn't want to let his brother down. And so he came to me and is like, do you think? I mean, he had gotten into so much pain so much angst. And this is a person who's really balanced, wonderful mind, plays instruments, knows what to do, is an amazing, amazing force of nature with this amazing tennis talent. And he was ready to give it all up because he couldn't get help with his hip.
Yeah.
And he was scared of surgery because players at the time, this was years ago, 2004, 2005, he said, everyone that's doing the surgery is not coming back. So I think I need the surgery. So I guess I'm not going to come back. I was like, what are you talking about? First of all.
Wow.
So then he said, and he had this little glimmer of hope, and all I needed to do was kind of raise him up.
Yeah.
And we did. And he never needed the surgery still to this day.
And how long did you work with him?
Well, really, it was like 4 months to turn it around. But he had great people that were traveling with him. I helped out at a couple of tournaments, but it was really turning things around, getting the whole program focused to get his weak links to become assets and not just drive his assets, which would have broken down the body.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of deciphering what's going to be the biggest bang for the buck that gets everything in line. And sometimes you'd be surprised. There's one thing that's not right. And when you open that up, it provides the key and everything else just comes back online. Everything. It's like insane. Sometimes my patients will tell me, oftentimes I get this feedback like, what the hell button did you press? It's gone. It's one thing that I impact in the body to change and shift. And bam. You know how some people say, I went to this retreat or this happened to me and bam, in an instant, my life was changed.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing in the physical body. So I think we can hold the key to opening up that door. But so often we just get bogged in, let's rub out the symptoms.
Totally. Well, it's what we're taught, you know, on so many planes of life as well. If we're feeling pain or feeling discomfort of some kind, let's numb it, rather than actually use our wisdom to question, okay, the pain's trying to get our attention in some way.
That's right.
We're actually meant to go deeper into it. Famous Rumi quote, the cure for the pain is in the pain. I love that quote. There's a wisdom and an intelligence. I'm writing about this at the moment, actually, in our pain. And it creates a discord and a disconnection when we want to, divorce that pain.
Yeah.
By any means, at any cost, right? So bringing this back to the other end of the spectrum, the people in the world that haven't maybe ever experienced the liberation that you can really feel, the intelligence that you have access to when your entire system is online. I really want them to hear this, because it's not just about, eat your 5 vegetables and walk for 30 minutes a day, and that's what you've got to do to be healthy. This is really about you as an entire being accessing the fullness of your potential. There's a strong part of your intelligence which cannot be unlocked just through the mind. And it definitely can't be unlocked by consistently numbing out these points of intelligence and wisdom, which are asking for your attention and your cooperation.
Yep. I think about movement as, it's kind of like it's meditative. Because when you're moving, you're not thinking of your to-do list. You're not thinking of anything. And if specifically for me, it's, we call it the 3 M's, right? It's like music, movement, meditation. You get all of that in dance. You get the benefits of listening to that music, which really changes your whole neurological state, wakes up different parts of the brain, helps calm things down. And it doesn't just have to be Mozart, right? Which everybody thinks, oh, I have to listen to classical music. Yes, I spent my whole life listening to classical music, and many neuroscientists have told me I will live longer because of that, because I spent, I've been dancing since 4.
To classical music?
Well, ballet.
Right.
Now, did I also do hip hop and jazz and this and that and African dance and flamenco? Yeah, sure. And I love Latin dance and all of these other things. I was a professional modern dancer, but there's all sorts of different music, but it actually, the neuroscience today shows your favorite music. So oftentimes I have these patients that come in and they're like, well, I could never be quiet in my mind. I could never calm down. I'm always feeling like,
what about when you listen to your favorite song?
That's right.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, put on your favorite song, shake around the house. What are you talking about? I can't dance really well. Yes, you can. Move, to the beat, whatever that means to you. And then you'll start to get that flow. So oftentimes you will hear people be like, I can't be quiet in my mind. And I basically say, that's fine. Don't just keep at it. Let's change it up. Music, movement, dance around, be free and light in your body, just kind of change it around. You know, when I'm in a dance class, there's no way in hell I'm thinking about the steps that I'm doing, the movement that I have to do, the balance I have to do, the music, the keys, the everything. I'm just in it. And so that's provided, I think, an avenue and this kind of like clear path from my body to my mind. So even when I'm still, I can still access it, right? You hear these amazing meditators and yogis and profound, wise people around the world. And when you're in harmony with yourself and there is that flow, everything's great. So my spin is, and my kind of passion and specialty really is tweaking the body to allow for the flow, to then allow for all the changes that we want in our body and our mind.
Yeah. I love that. And I really trust this is being received by all our listeners, especially entrepreneurs, which I know is why Kim, you know, really wants you a part of this project, because entrepreneurs and leaders, big demographic that listen to the global affair, you know, sometimes that interconnectedness between the mind and body and self-care and looking after yourself and staying your best version of you is thrown to the curb at times, you know. And I think at times that's for the, you know, the greater good or doing what needs to be done, but we really miss the point in that so much. So I want all of you that fit into that category to hear this. And we've had some pretty interesting conversations over the past couple of days, you know, including how some of the environmental factors in our world are throwing people out of balance, and that this conversation extends, you know, beyond just the individual choice of movement as well. And I'd love to spend some time sort of just tapping into some of your knowledge and wisdom and perspectives around what are some of the other elements of what we're eating, consuming, drinking, exposed to, that's important for us to be aware of so that we can take back control, you know, and be more sovereign in our health and our body.
Sadly, it's not like we own land to grow our own fruits and vegetables.
Some of us maybe.
Some of us maybe, right? But even those who can sometimes don't. You know, I have the esteemed pleasure of being able to not only treat my patients in the city, but also in the Hamptons, and where they have a lot more land and these amazing homes and gardens and things like that. And really, out of all my patients with these amazing places that they live, there's only 2 that actually have a garden that they grow their food. And everybody else is just beauty, right? In the flora and
the roses.
And that's okay, because you need that. Beauty is love, and love is beauty. So I'm cool with that, but why not, right? So I think my biggest problem, and what I think is at the root of this, is that we're not doing regenerative farming. 98% now of the world's soil is depleted of minerals, has basically nothing in it that it once did. So we're losing minerals. So when people say, oh, it's just gimmicky to take supplements and vitamins and this, it's like, well, you're not getting what you used to. They say something like, I forget the statistic, it's something like you have to eat like 34 apples to get the nutrient density of the apple in the 1960s. It's crazy. That's crazy. To 34? I mean, crazy. And don't quote me on the numbers, they're probably a little bit off, but you know, it's something like that, something really astronomically crazy. And
I just started taking CT minerals for this exact reason, and I'm just like doing my own research into it.
There's blue ocean minerals. There's all sorts of things that are a necessity. So, you know, clean water is really important. I have a whole house filtration system that filters out everything, even in my showering, and then double filter for my water, my drinking water.
Absorb through the skin. People
exactly. It's the largest organ of our body, and we constantly absorb things. So that's important. What we're putting on our skin, all the phthalates and all of these chemicals that are allowed to be put into products that make it easy for the distributors and the manufacturers to make, and cheaper, and they, you know, can still kind of go under these fake labels of like being okay and green,
organic,
and it's still bad for you. We have noise. There's a lot of noise, and that is a stimulus that's quite negative to our nervous system. That kind of puts us into parasympathetic mode. You know, I'm a New Yorker, so I feel numb to that. However, I didn't realize that it actually did. It kept me zzz. Now that served me because I have a high fast-paced life, and I've got patients that just want to get better yesterday. But I had to really check that, So a lot of people don't think about that, the noise. Going through nature and walking outdoors and moving outdoors and looking at the sights of nature is hugely impactful on our health and wellness. Walking on a treadmill is nothing compared to walking outside. It's not, people think, oh, I got to go on a ramp and I've got to do X amount of, burn X amount of calories and, this, that. It's like, what are you talking about? Get outside. Everybody asks me, Patricia, how did you bounce back after your 3 pregnancies? And you look almost better than you did before. And I'm like, I slept. Really? I didn't let cortisol spike. And I moved in nature. Oh, you went for power walk? No, I just walked. I pushed my baby. I walked. I stayed in nature. I was outside. I didn't let my body go into that fight and flight stage where everything slows down because the body thinks that a bear is chasing you. So it's not going to metabolize anything in your body or even absorb nutrition. You can get the best diet if you don't if you're not in a good place and you're in that sympathetic mode, you're actually not absorbing. Oftentimes it's like, oh, this is a highly absorbable this, because so many people that take good stuff can't absorb it. What's happening in leaky gut? People think, oh, yeah, it's okay, I could eat that bagel. That wheat has been totally modified and crossbred. And then, to have more grain and less stalk. And it's being sprayed with 360 times the allowed amount of glyphosate.
Crazy.
Glyphosate is not only a neurotoxin, but it's also wears away at our gut lining. So people are like, oh, I don't have Crohn's and colitis. Oh, I don't have celiac disease. I could eat this till the cows come home. It's not the bread of your grandparents. It just isn't. They tested the gluten content in the bread that was made with wheat, with gluten back in the day, and it had basically none. But, my grandma had a humongous bicep from like cutting the bread that she made because it was so darn heavy on the outside, a little soft, but quite dense on the inside, right? Yeah. And she'd have to cut that thing. Why? Because for 3 days it sat there with the starter, with the yeast, and that yeast ate up all of the gluten molecules and all of that.
Just so much closer to the source.
Exactly. But they knew back then that they had to do that. Isn't that interesting? That's where I am fascinated.
Yeah.
How did all of these cultures all around the world have this same kind of narrative and same kind of wisdom that they had that, okay, this is how we treat this from the land. This is how we treat this. Oh, we do not combine this and this. We need to add this. And now we have even more nutritional density, right? Like adding healthy fats like olive oil to vegetables makes that vegetable even more absorbable and more potent in all of its nutrients. So like there's certain things that we just have lost that, like grandma's not there to tell you because grandma doesn't know. Where this information has been passed down from generation to generation. And when you stay as best you can, close to nature.
Yeah. Because the commercialization
it will serve you. Yeah, instead
of food over the past. I was even hearing my mom talk about when she was a child, they needed to keep the meat and the milk, and they didn't have a refrigerator. It was like a cold box. I was like, wow, like I knew that would be my grandma's experience, but the fact that was my mom's experience, I was like, wow. And so what they couldn't keep all the shit. You know? It was just what they needed.
Exactly. And they fermented things, which is so good. And when did you have that fermented food? In the winter, when you didn't get your vitamin D from the sun and you were in this kind of deficit. But that's when you got all of these wonderful kind of prebiotics and probiotics that actually strengthened your immune system by way of the gut. So it's just intelligence that's well beyond what we're doing, right? When the number one snack food is Doritos in this United States, it's
True
a problem.
Fact?
True fact. I'm like, what? Yeah. And why they have 5,000 commercials on the internet, on the Super Bowl, the most expensive time to have a commercial, because, that's the only people that are actually making money, because you cannot patent nature. Yeah. So no one's going to be like, I don't know, the apple growers of the world, Yeah. So
they try.
They try. Avocados did it for a hot second.
That's why Avo Smash is so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It's paying $40 in Australia for
It's nuts. It's nuts. And that's not cool.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be privileged to have what the earth is supposed to give us 100%. In its organic, truest form. And that's, I think, the travesty of today, is that we have lost that. And as my husband, the scientist, says, well, in a few generations we'll evolve where it may not have as much of a degradation and deficit. But for right now and for the next couple generations, but I actually don't think he thinks we will adapt
to the toxins,
and like be able to tolerate them better. Because right now we're seeing the height of childhood illnesses, chronic disease, everything. Everybody's got autoimmunity. Someone has something.
But why would we barrack for a superficial version?
I think
of
it's
diet and chemicals.
I don't think it's that's superior, but it's more like, if you're constantly surrounded by something.
That's like more of a philosophical question.
Yeah.
Humanity, you know.
Oh yeah, we can't let this happen. Exactly.
Why would we want to adapt?
No.
Why would we want to adapt to that when, you know, who we are is a part of nature, and to be so far removed.
But what are we
from
sacrificing?
Nature, yeah, exactly.
What are we sacrificing? You're sacrificing, really. I mean, we have suicide, depression, anxiety is like plaguing many people. Huge portion of the population.
Yeah.
And that's reality.
80% of the Western world experience loneliness, you know, every day. And there's many, it's a wicked problem. It's a complex problem, you know, there's a lot of factors to that. But one thing that I often contemplate, as that has been a big part of my work in creating communities and supporting communities, you know, what I've had to contemplate the question deeply, you know, what is loneliness? And what's the antidote for loneliness? And we live in this ecosystem that extends actually beyond just the person that I have a conversation with. It's feeling like you belong to your environment, feeling like you belong to, you know, nature at large. This, I think, is a huge component to really feel connected to what's around you. And all of these choices we're making, from the lack of movement and the sitting in front of a computer and the sitting for 8 hours a day, all the way through to what we're actually putting into our bodies. It's a very intimate experience when you think about it, eating. It's really, there's only a couple things that we put into our bodies, you know. To make choices that are removing us from nature, I think is something to contemplate.
And I think when you are talking to entrepreneurs and people who want the best, push for the best, work hard to be the best, to be innovative, and all of those things, you say to yourself, why would you have a donut and a coffee in the morning? Is that serving that same energy? Is that really the best? I mean, I've worked with these people that can afford to have the 5,000 avocado smashes, right? But they choose these other things, and there's a complete disconnect that bagel is not serving them, or that donut is not serving them. And they're just kind of going from one meal to the other. And granted, they might be going to fancy restaurants and all that stuff, but guess what? They were also turning the corner. They're cutting corners. Cutting corners.
The fancy restaurants?
Yes. So I treat a lot of people, and one of the people that I treated, he's going to kill me if he's listening to this, you know, supplies all of the top restaurants in New York City, all of these amazing chefs with their ingredients. And he said, you know, the stuff that they use for their beef stock, that is the kind of almost like the foundation to many of their recipes. He tried to get them to just go 50 cents higher per pound to remove some of these other additives that were actually in the mix of what they were buying, because the distributor kind of manufacturer changed their formulation. He's like, well, you know, there's more of this stuff in this, and just take that, but you could take it out by going to this level. They were like, no.
Yeah, just affected the margin too much,
right?
In their thinking,
right?
You know?
And then maybe they're not going to choose the highest level of olive oil because they could get away with it, because they can spice around it or something.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that there aren't restaurants out there that do provide amazing, but you cannot think, oh, I don't know how to cook very well, I have the means, I'm going to eat this food. You're giving your power over. What if that person had a bad day? Their energy is going into that food. You're ingesting that food. You're taking that energy. Same ideas of, you know, how we're slaughtering meat and all those kinds of practices and things like that, that you're getting all of those hormones that have that spike from the cow before he died. Right?
Stress,
Things like that, the fear, the stress. And so that actually comes into your being, and that actually affects you. So you might have paid $75 for that plate of steak and some things on the sides of it, and you're just kind of really not serving yourself to do that. So you're handing over your power when it comes to a meal. But you know, when you talk about connection, the other thing I thought of is right out the womb, you know, our practice and medicalization of giving birth. And people now are like, oh, skin to skin, because we realized that we were actually not doing it and the negative effects of that. The oxytocin,
like giving the baby
the
to the mom straight
safety,
away.
exactly. Because that will leave that baby an imprint of, ooh, this world might not be safe. And it's hard, pretty darn hard to get over that when it's happened to you in the first 30 seconds of birth.
Yeah.
There's more of the, chemicals of the fibers that they're wrapping the baby than the mom.
Most open and vulnerable you could ever possibly be, and innocent. Yeah.
So I, through my book, I try to integrate a little bit of those pearls of wisdom of what we used to do. And, sometimes I'm met with some people being like, this is crazy, but it's like, I'm not telling you to do it in this way. I'm not saying go home and do a home birth. What I'm saying is connect with your child. Don't put your phone in between that moment because you want to get an Instagram picture. This is terrible situations. That is nobody's business. You need to be 100% connected to that baby as they come out because they need you. And you need them. I feel like my health propelled. I mean, I was healthy. I'm very blessed and kind of with an immigrant home where my parents lived on a farm. We literally had a garden that grew our own vegetable spices and all sorts of fun stuff in Brooklyn. And I ate, it was like, oh, I'm making this. Patricia, go up and get me the rosemary, and that is a normal thing for me. And that, having been in that life, it was like, no, you're not getting the bag of pretzels. Come over here. Let me give you some of this, and this.
Yeah.
There was no get it out of a bag. It was like, I'll put it in a little, wax paper. And, at the time we didn't have parchment. It was like, and then put it all up in you. And so, or take an apple. And so I feel very blessed to have had those gifts early on and to not have given my body that like thirst for MSG, and all of these scientists that have gone behind these formulations of these things that truly make you addicted. And so that connection to family, to safety, to grounding, to I belong here and I am going to be looked after and we're in this together. No matter what happens, I am here. Everybody deserves that. That's your birthright. You come out of your mom, you're connected to your mom. When you come out, you have to cut the cord, right? It's not like the cord just magically disappears. That's not how nature does it. You still could keep that cord going. That last bit of blood should kind of come through and you should be holding that baby so close to you. And then everything starts to get calm. And that nervous system, there's even where you hold the baby and its connection to the scalp on your arm gives a read to your body of what to produce in that breast milk for what the baby needs.
Wow, so intelligent.
And what are we doing? We're pumping and never touching the baby sometimes. Now, I'm not saying you can't pump because I did it all. You got to do a little bit of everything. However, you got to hold that baby close to you and get the information that you need so that you can be the best for that baby's growth and development.
And that's just all communicated through the body.
Through the body.
Yeah.
Right?
Incredible.
So you have to be healthy to hold that baby in the right way.
Strong enough.
But you don't know how wise this body is, that new baby is. The interrelation and intercommunication of what's happening there is way more sophisticated than we've ever thought. And you can't just, every time you take a little shortcut, no, you're taking a shortcut. It's not a new way and a new cool way to do something. No, it's a shortcut. You're not going to get everything that the benefit that you need. Now, granted, if you cannot breastfeed, that's a whole other story, but you can do so many other things, but know that you need to do those other things. There should be a compensation for it, not just, oh, that's just the way that I'm doing it and it serves me and everything's right. And, but rather understand that in those moments, you can actually decrease your anxiety if you do it in that way. It might be harder. It might take you more time. It might be more of a commitment from you. And that's where I think we really need to honor those times. I feel very blessed to be on the first ever task force for women's health for the WTA and Hologic. We're basically trying to create standards of care for women that are elite athletes because so many of them in the past had to hang up their sneakers or hang up their career to have a baby. And now they're all coming back and wanting to come back. And the body is miraculous. And of course they can come back and they can do it all. But there's certain things that through this population, we're going to, I think, be able to get some light shed because so many of us just aspire to be and want to know what these wonderful professionals are doing. So I think through that, I'm very excited to be part of that and to be able to almost give that roadmap to people to say, hey, these are the foundational principles that if you do, you will come back better and stronger and more connected. And if I honestly, I don't have any research to back this up, but I do feel in my gut that if they do the birthing process right, they could totally turn around the anxiety, the depression, the other fears and worries that they had before.
Wow.
I do. I think it could be a turning point.
Of the nervous system.
It is
100%.
Yeah. And you're totally plastic right after pregnancy for about 18 months.
Wow.
So that's a wonderful opportunity
so, like,
to right the
your
ship.
Previous conditionings just suspended, and there's there's a liminality, an opportunity to rewire.
Yeah, like our body detoxifies during puberty. It detoxifies again with the birth of the baby. So you've got this like almost clean slate opportunity. So nature in itself gives us these opportunities during the lifespan to actually right the ship when it's going in the wrong direction. So if you're listening to this going, oh shoot, I did everything wrong, it doesn't matter.
Have a baby.
Have a baby if you can, right? But no, understand those principles and learn what are the aspects that happen, during the birthing process, during the, postpartum phase, and how can I have those elements? Can I hug someone? And if you don't have someone, hug a tree. 12 hugs a day, like literally rights the internal ship in the right direction. Like we start going on the right path when we start having that oxytocin rush and all of these chemical reactions. I believe nature is literally saying, oh, okay, this person's like part of something here. They matter. Let's keep energizing those cells, get those mitochondria to light up, get those neurosynaptic activity in the brain to just kind of happen. And you just feel more alive. So sad that people walk through life and actually say, that experience made me feel alive. It's like, wait a minute, you're alive. What the hell?
Yeah, it made me feel
Maybe,
alive.
yeah. I'm a behavioral breathing analyst. It's so funny. Everybody's like, so what's the most important thing? I'm like, well, try not breathing. Right? It's like, maybe my food's not right, maybe my movement's not right, but if you're not breathing right, you're not alive. So, that flow of breath in the body, all of those things, all these things matter. So we've got to get back to those fundamental aspects of, how we come into this life and learn the lessons again that we do need, and really understand that industry and government control so much of putting us in the wrong side of things that you cannot look to them as experts. Oh, the CDC says, the NIH says, well, they've been saying that,
look at them as profiteers.
Exactly. Look at them as dollar signs, right? For themselves, not for you, and big pharma and all those things.
So you've written an amazing book, and you were just sharing prior to the recording of the episode that there were some elements of what was the book's name? What to expect when expecting. That made you as a thought leader, think there's some things here that are maybe missing that moms really need to know. And just would love to hear a little bit about that.
So basically, just as I said before about this ancient wisdom, it's lost. So I had a lot of people, I give lectures, I do various things, I work with people one-on-one, and it was really like some women in the reproductive years wanting to do it right, but grandmas coming to me going, I don't know how to help my daughter. And then there were patients coming in to see me, because I do see usually my, the good portion of my population is really in those reproductive years. And they basically were saying to me like, oh my God, I opened up the book and it says if I'm over 35, I have an increased risk of diabetes, hypertension, preeclampsia, death. I'm sorry. You have to be responsible for that. How can you be the #1 selling pregnancy book and tell women who are basically now birthing after the age of 35 that they could die? You're freaking them out. And the neuroscience says all you have to do is not let the pregnant woman get stressed out and avoid bad news. I mean, this is like, my background is, my parents are Greek and I am I am Spartan. And so they basically were like, they told everybody in our community, like, don't tell Patricia bad news while she was pregnant. And I was like, come on, I do it all. And I'm this, come on, mom, hear me roar. And I'm this, boss woman and I could take it. And she's like, no, you can't. And I actually listened to her, and then I saw the neuroscience. Like, wow. So how did they know that then? So I just think we have to take a lesson from the old wise traditions that were, because they're way more sophisticated, way more wise than we'd ever know. And we've got more problems, not less. If we had less problems, I would give a little grain of salt to what we're doing today. We have way more problems. Our birth rates and our death and horrendous birth outcomes are really not as good as they used to be at one point. And so we really have to marry a little bit of modern medicine, because I do think it can be life-saving. I'm not here to knock that, but there's so many aspects that we're doing that is actually not helping us at all for the lifespan of that mom and of that baby and the next generation. And what you've done actually in preconception is going to affect the next 2 generations. So what you did today, like, oh, who cares? I did a little bit of drugs and alcohol and whoopsie, we got pregnant, not a big deal. Well, that's going to have a negative impact on the genome of that baby and what's going to happen to your grandchildren. So maybe your baby's okay. And you say, oh, thank God.
If you already didn't feel responsible enough.
Yeah. And then the baby, right? So, and then it's estimated by many scientists that the man's sperm is 70 responsible for the health of that future baby.
Wow.
Do men take any ownership and get ready and get healthy for that baby? No, they just have like a really fun night. Or they're a sperm donor and they're just like, I need the money. But so, we have to kind of understand that this is a responsibility and we have to prepare for it, just like you prepare for a marathon. You don't wake up that morning and go, yeah, I think I'll run this thing. You have to prepare.
Yeah.
And there's a responsibility. And so what I was finding was that people wanted to know exercises and breathing and real, true, tangible advice. So I paired up with Dr. Anita Sadati, who is a functional medicine OBGYN. So there's a whole OBGYN kind of sections to it. So you do get what you're probably looking for and what to expect, but you also get all of this ancient wisdom and all of this kind of knowledge, but you also have, it's like a support. The number one way to have a healthy baby is to feel supported. So I know so many people are not supported. So the whole feeling in the book and the undertone of the whole thing is, you're here. You are wise. You have this wisdom inside of you. Tap into that wise intuition. I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to give you some science. I'm going to give you some awareness of some of the traditions that have been done by ancestors and people way wiser than us in the past. Now look at all of that. See what resonates for you. See what choices you want to make that makes sense for you, because you are the N of one. You're the one person that needs your own individual recipe. Nothing is, set in stone. It's like, follow these recipes. No, I'm not like that. However, you need to at least have the knowledge of a few different ideas to then spark that insight that you actually have within you.
Absolutely fascinating. Patricia, thank you so much. If you were to leave these guys with, some closing thoughts, perspectives, what would they be? And just know that we're going to link everyone to where to find you, socials, where to buy the book. But yeah, closing thoughts.
Turn up the music and dance. Get your body moving.
Love it. We need that more in the world for so many reasons. So
we have to dance through life. We can't just trudge through it.
That's right. 100%. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I've loved it. Thank you for listening, my friend. If you enjoyed the show, please let us know by leaving a review or sharing the episode with someone you love and expanding this conversation as far and wide as possible. If you're looking for a community to have conversations with about global affairs, please jump in our Telegram group or join our free think tanks. Thanks for being a part of the shift towards a love-based civilization. We'll see you in the Telegram group or in the next episode.